Recognizing the member for Peace River North.
Thanks, Honourable Speaker. Appreciate it, and certainly happy to take my place and provide some comments on the 2024 budget. Sad budget, I might add. A budget that has, and you know, I could go back and probably print off my last 5 or 6 budget speeches, and in fact, I did think about it just out of here, you know, it'd be much quicker, but this one's, they keep getting worse. Budget after budget after budget keeps getting worse. And this one is by far the one that scares me the most. It scares me the most because I worry about the future of this province. I worry about my kids, I worry about my kids' kids, and how we're going to, you know, provide any kind of light at the end of the tunnel. At a time, though, when British Columbians need that light at the end of the tunnel. People desire, actually need to see some sort of hope. And that is a significant part of what role the government plays, is providing that hope. And this budget, I'd like to talk a little bit about the throne speech, but due to a complete change in procedure, we don't really have the opportunity to talk about the throne speech. But you know, the throne speech and budget, those are really critical documents by government that lay out a plan for the year, that provide that hope and pathway for British Columbians, a roadmap, if you will. But it's really clear from a throne speech that really said nothing and to a budget that is spend with no results kind of a budget. It is clear that there is no plan by this government to provide for a prosperous future for British Columbians. Affordability in this province, Madam Speaker, has never, ever been as bad as it is now. And I know that every single person in this chamber, at their offices, at their local coffee shops, doesn't matter where you come from in this province, are talking about the challenges with affordability. A majority of British Columbians are $200 away every month from not being able to make their rent payments, not being able to provide groceries, or having to choose between rent and prescriptions, rent or groceries. What are we cutting this month? Life has never been more unaffordable than it is right now under this NDP government. But, Madam Speaker, before I start into my budget speech, I do want to thank, first of all of my constituents in Peace River North for giving me the opportunity to represent them in this place. It is truly a privilege, and I know it's a privilege that all of us share as we come here and do this business on behalf of our constituents. I want to thank my constituency assistants, Natasha Scott and Susie Keeler, who are both in Fort St. John, and Kimmy Glinsky, who is in Fort Nelson. They've all been fantastic. And being the face of the legislature in our local communities, certainly over these past few years, has not been an easy job. And I certainly want to give a shout out to them. Also to my legislative staff, as all of us know and lean on, they make our world here so much better and easier as we move forward. So Wendy, King, Kevin Francini, and Parnian Tahiri, thank you to all of them that make, again, this, make it just much easier here to do our jobs. Oh, sorry. So this is the 7th budget that we've seen by this government come through here. Spending much more than ever before, and I'll cover that here shortly. and delivering less than ever before. Quite backwards, actually. What has improved? You can go out on the streets and ask people, what has improved in 7 years? Has healthcare improved? Has crime and disorder on our streets improved? Has affordability improved? And the list goes on, and the answer is no. We have been, over the past number of years, left with a long list of NDP failures, whether we're talking about housing or healthcare, streets. In fact, healthcare is so mismanaged in this province that no one can trust, or no one is trusting this government to help them out. I know people up in my riding, and we are situated, my colleague Peace River South, we're hearing stories that we should never hear, that I feel better if I'm going to go just across the border to Alberta to seek my emergency treatment, because the wait lists are shorter there, the emergency times are less. That is something that we should not be seeing. British Columbians should not have to, out of necessity, be traveling that extra time just to go to another jurisdiction because they don't feel they can get the same medical services here in British Columbia. We've seen the out-of-control spending. In fact, and this isn't new. COVID is when this government first started deficit spending, and we don't argue that. COVID certainly was a interesting time, and I would be hard-pressed to probably find any government that didn't do some deficit spending during COVID times. But, we're now going into year 4, or almost, post-COVID, and this budget is posing a $8 billion deficit. $8 billion. It's actually hard to even fathom what $8 billion looks like. And I, as a former school teacher myself, I used to always have to do those big numbers and put them into something that people could imagine. You look at a single piece of paper, and if you were to stack those papers all up, 8 billion sheets of paper, it would be over 1 million meters in height. That's a lot. It's a lot of paper.
Finally, finally the NDP would be supporting forestry.
Yeah, they might be. Yeah, they are supporting forestry if that was the case. If you were to work an 8-hour day, that would actually be 761 million days to do 8-hour days. Actually, it's going to take almost that long to probably pay the debt off, Honourable Speaker. A plan to make life more affordable is our plan, the BC United plan. We actually have a plan to make life more affordable, making investments, encouraging an environment where other people or people want to invest in our province. Return to a world-class healthcare system that we had under the BC Liberal, now BC United government. I know it's been circulated around, and I know members on the other side, don't like seeing it, but, actually, when our leader of the opposition was the health minister, it was the front page of the Vancouver Sun. British Columbia had the top medical system in the country. I would argue we're near the bottom on the continent now in regards to our medical system. But it's not for lack of money. Like this, we've heard the Minister of Health today. We're throwing money, billions of dollars, spending, but we're getting worse results. There's a huge disconnect there, Honourable Speaker. And we see this across the board in all areas of spending, whether we're talking the $8 billion deficit now or the doubling well, over doubling now of our debt, provincial debt, we're getting worse results. You know, British Columbia joined Confederation in 1871, almost 150 years ago now. And I know we've heard this in here before, but I like to say it because it really sets the stage for reckless spending by the NDP government. In that 150 years, it took the province of British Columbia, or it took 150 years, to gain $50 billion in total debt over that time. From 2017, what happened in 2017? Oh yeah, an election happened. The NDP became government in 2017. 2017 to now, in just around 7 years, they've doubled what has taken 150 years to do. And over this budget cycle, I think there's another $64 billion coming over this budget cycle of debt coming. My great-great-great-great-grandkids cannot afford what the NDP are doing today. Might even need a couple more greats into that. It is unbelievable the level of reckless spending that this government is doing with no care and concern about the future of British Columbia. It's a race to the bottom, Honourable Speaker. And we have seen this over and over again. It's almost like we're trying to compete with the federal government who can gather the most debt. And there is a direct link. There is a direct link with debt and deficit spending with inflation, with affordability. And again, I go back to this is, you walk into any A&W in any small community, this is what people are talking about in these communities. How broke they are, how they can't afford X, Y, or Z. And it goes directly into this reckless spending.
Good thing you're a fiscal conservative.
Good thing I am a fiscal conservative, because we need fiscal conservatism in this government, which I don't think we're going to see, sadly. I wouldn't want to compare the past with now, because the past, we just have to look at the past. It was much, much better. Whether we're talking deliverables on healthcare, whether we're talking affordability, whether we're talking an economy that was tickety, tick, tick, it is not happening right now. I don't know if tickety, tick, tick's a word, but it sounded good.
No.
If I heard that from my engine in my truck, I wouldn't be happy.
You're going to make no context.
Yeah. But, Honourable Speaker, my goodness, it scares me. It scares me for my children. It scares me for the future of all of our children here. That just the debt servicing is around $5 billion. One of my colleagues down here, I can't remember who said it, it's the fourth largest ministry by budget, if it was a ministry, the debt servicing ministry. What could you do with $5 billion that is just basically going toward servicing our debt? That's a lot of schools. It's a lot of hospitals. The Taylor Bridge, we could actually four-lane it, and that'd be a nice bridge up and we could even cover it. Heated. $5 billion is, Honourable Speaker, is a lot of money. But it is money that British Columbians are only seeing pain for, because it is just paying off or servicing our horrendous amount of debt. In Budget 2024, we do see some kind of little things that are going to frizzle out here. They're, little bit of money thrown here and there for 2024 to help out, some people, organizations. I wonder what's happening this year, where they'd be kind of just throwing money out to these different organizations. Maybe there's an election this year, because there's certainly no sustainable wins for British Columbians. Again, BC United does have a different approach. We do have a different approach. We understand that taxpayers right now are stretched to the absolute max. We have put solutions forward. You know, cutting provincial fuel tax. That is something that would have immediate savings to mums and dads driving their kids to different events, or trucking, you know, up in our neck of the woods. Everything is trucked up there. All of our produce, our goods, you name it, is trucked. And the cost of that fuel goes directly onto the cost of everything that we consume. So a 15-cent tax break on the provincial gas tax is a huge savings for all British Columbians. Removing the PST on used vehicles, giving a break to people who need it the most. Middle-class folks that are buying a used vehicle. We've committed to removing the carbon tax on home heating. And I apologize, I actually had printed off my natural gas bill, and it hurts. It is okay, there's a few that I don't like getting in my mailbox, but that's certainly one that I dread getting, is my natural gas bill. I don't get one of them. Yeah, see? I don't get those rebates. I just out. So this is,
Never got one.
I am actually one of almost everybody who lives up the north. I have no choice. And I know the previous speaker was talking about, oh, the heat pumps. You know, they're wonderful, pat on the back, they're great. They don't work in Fort Nelson when it's 50 below. They might help, but you still need a natural gas heater. You're still going to need a forced air furnace. Or in Fort St. John. 3 weeks of January, we were locked in at minus 40 in Fort St. John. The whole Northeast. Actually, the whole province was cold during that time. And the carbon tax was just a givener. We've committed to removing that tax, the BC United. You know, I've said this before, I've lost count now, but I think my colleague from the Kootenays there printed off this 32 new taxes and fees by the NDP government have been implemented since 2017. The increases in carbon tax be over doubling here over the next number of years. Property taxes increase, income tax increase, corporate tax increased, ICBC unlisted premium, ICBC learner premium, sugar drinks, the pop tax, the Netflix tax, different tax brackets created, FOI fees, fossil fuel home heating equipment tax, used car sales tax, the marketplace tax. Yeah, the list goes on and on and on, Honourable Speaker. It's like the story of Robin Hood. Except the government's the prince out there stealing the money from people trying to get by day by day. Guess that makes us the Robin Hood, doesn't it? Sort of. You know, and I have to wonder, just to talk briefly about why the taxation, hitting British Columbians over and over and over again. We can't give anymore. British Columbians can't give anymore. I know the folks up in my region can't give anymore. But at the same time, we have a government that is slowly shutting down our resource sector. They don't support oil and gas. They don't really support our forest industry. How many mills are shut down? We don't support mining expansion in this province. Okay? We don't even support our agriculture community. These are things that generate revenue for British Columbians. And when you start kicking that out the door, all the NDP have is tax. That's all they have. British Columbians are leaving British Columbia in record numbers for greener pastures, Honorable Speaker. And I'm not making that up. It's in their budget book. I think it's 5 consecutive years of losses to other jurisdictions, mostly, I'll say, Alberta. I certainly know up in myself and Peace River South riding, we have people that are looking to Alberta, moving.
Sounded like you just moved to my riding.
Myself and my colleague from Peace River South. I maybe didn't put an and in there. So these are people we need. These are tradespeople. These are professionals that we need. And often when you have one person leave, a spouse leaves with them. Kids leave with them. We need to turn the ship around, Honorable Speaker. And Budget 2024 is still on a crash course. There's no end in sight. You know, I'm going to run out of time here. Healthcare. Where do I even start? You know, it is the one thing, and I can only talk for my office. I presume most other of the members here, it is the number one complaint that I get in my office is around healthcare. People coming in. People sitting across my desk crying. Completely emotionally drained because either they themselves cannot get the medical attention they need or it's a family member. The wait times are the worst on the continent, or is it in Canada? I think it's in Canada, British Columbia. No different in my region. People can't access specialists in rural BC, or anywhere for that matter. And no family doctors. We just heard my colleague from Prince George Valemount, 26% of British Columbians do not have a family doctor. And when you don't have a family doctor and you have a critical incident in your life, a disease, whether that be cancer or something else, and you don't have a family doctor, that could be a death sentence. And I have a number of people in my riding right now that don't have family doctors, that are dealing with a critical illness, and they can't get help. And sadly, many of them look to MAID for an easy way out because of a government that's failed British Columbia, failed our healthcare system. Fort Nelson even, like we're talking emergency rooms, Fort Nelson just recently was on diversion. And I don't want to downplay other communities, but this happens. We hear this all the time. Chetwynd, I know, has been on diversion multiple times. But when Fort Nelson goes on diversion, it's 500 kilometers away. This isn't just an hour drive to get to the next emergency. If it's something serious, quite likely that person's not going to make it. We have been working with the Ministry of Health for a long time to try and get Medivac services. There's even a Villers Air up in Fort Nelson who's been trying to get an ad hoc service and provide the ministry, hey, I have a plane up here. It meets the requirements. We can't even get the government to use them. Instead, they'll put someone in an ambulance and send them 5 hours down the road. And if you've ever driven the Alaska Highway north of Fort St. John in the winter, you never know what you're going to expect. Our healthcare system is crumbling at all levels. Yet the minister and government tends to think, no, we're doing great. We're doing this. We're meeting all these expectations. I don't understand. It's like that little GIF there with the dog sitting at the table and everything's burning down around him. And he's saying, no, everything's fine here. It's not. I have not talked to one British Columbian, not one British Columbian, whether in my riding or if I'm here in the Lower Mainland, that says, God, we have a fantastic healthcare system. Said no one. Because it's not true. It's a shameful medical system. And it's because this government's mismanagement. I do take my hats off for all the people that work in our system doing the best they can with the limited resources they have. Because thank goodness we have great people in our system that are doing the best they can to deliver the best they can. But this government needs to do more in supporting that. You know, we just heard recently, I think it was in question period today, about the retinal surgery even. You know, I have a lot of seniors in my area that have written to me. I don't have permission to use their name, so I won't use their name. But, you know, a couple of them are like worried, if I don't get this, I will go blind. Because of a decision by this government to cut 32% out of the provincial retinal disease treatment program, which is jeopardizing predominantly seniors to receive this life-changing surgery that they need. Mental health and addictions, again, one of our worst crises to face the province of British Columbia. And it's getting worse year after year. The more the government tries to do what, I don't know, whether you're talking about the failed and reckless decriminalization experiment or otherwise, the numbers keep getting worse. You know, it's that definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Well, people are dying. This government has developed a system in this province to keep people in addiction, not to move them to recovery. There's very little prevention even happening. BC United is going to change that. We have already brought forward a plan to focus on recovery, focus on getting British Columbians better, supporting them, holding their hand along the journey as they heal. Public safety, and I'm totally running out of time here. Public safety, another issue. I just hosted a crime and disorder town hall at the Lido Theatre, full house. People from all walks of life came out that are concerned. It's in Fort St. John, a small rural town. People are worried about walking down the street, not at night, at daytime, because they don't feel safe. Businesses are shutting down because they cannot afford anymore to have a window smashed out or people walking out with shopping carts full of whatever. And our justice system, our catch and release justice system, just whirlwinds them back out. That's fine. You're good. And then they go out and do it again. Back in front of a judge, back out, do it again, back in front of a judge, and it's on and on and on. People are done. All crime needs to be held, all criminals need to be held accountable. And it's these little petty crimes that are breaking our businesses, that are shutting down, many of them in my riding, which impacts employment. People can't work. Our downtowns are getting worse because this government is failing British Columbians. I could talk so much more, about the 140,000 public sector employees that this government has hired over 7 years. The massive loss in the private sector. No supports for persons with disabilities. In fact, I have a note here. Oh, I got too many papers. I have a note here somewhere, from one of the advocates. Basically says, nothing for persons with disabilities in this BC budget 2024. I've given up hope with this party. That's it. no more. You know, we've been hearing from home share communities. Nothing new for home share. These are people that are about to walk away, leaving many of our vulnerable with nowhere to go. The electric car farce, talking about electric cars. Honourable Speaker, it is shameful. It is an absolute shame that the NDP government has put forward such a budget. Thank you.
Thank you, member.